This is KTN News.
Very good evening to you. Welcome to KTN Prime. We are glad you found time to join us this evening. So tonight we're posing a question. Do you have a degree from a Kenyan university? Tonight we'll be telling you whether or not that degree could be useless after all. Plus, we'll be focusing on the doctor's strike and sort of looking at both sides of the coin. That is a story that is being worked on by Timothy Otieno. You really need to watch that to understand the extent of the doctor's strike. I'm Linda Ogutu. Let's first take a look at our highlights tonight. Deep, painful and exclusive. How Kenya has survived for 74 days without doctors.
Independent Electoral and Boundary Commission is hereby directed to continue with mass voter registration up to 19th of February 2017.
You only have until Sunday. Court gives Kenyans 3 more days for voter registration.
So walipokuja huku kumbe lengo lao walikuwa ni kuwadanganya wawape pesa ili wabadilishe kura.
Mimi sijawahi kuleta mtu hata mmoja na gari yangu. Mimi kwanza sifanyi kazi kama hiyo.
Bribed and cheated, or is it propaganda? Kwale MCA in trouble with voters. And thousands of teachers in a dilemma as school-based degree programs are stopped immediately. Welcome to the program. Our sign language interpreter there at the bottom end of your screen is Meresha Owiti. Now, thousands of teachers, university students and even graduates in Kenya face turbulent times in the next few weeks after a new report recommended the recall of degrees, diplomas and the termination of courses for many. Let's take a look at the highlights of the university's audit by the Commission for University Education. Remember, there has been an outcry with many saying that Kenya is a nation that is full of people who are just hungry for degrees. It doesn't matter the quality of the degrees. And there have been several studies as well that have been carried out with many employers saying universities are churning out individuals who are employable but do not have the required skills. So let's take a look at an audit report that was, of course, ordered by Education CS Fred Matiang'i on universities in Kenya. That audit was conducted by Commission for University Education. And here's the thing, it focused on both private and public universities. So part of that report says that thousands of diplomas could be recalled. So if you have a diploma from one of the universities in Kenya, be it private or public, you may need to find out whether or not your degree is one of those that may be recalled. So the other thing that came out is that some universities offer non-accredited programs. These are programs that are not necessarily recognized by the Commission for University Education. So if you're a student as well in one of these universities, you may want to find out from your university whether or not the courses that you're taking are accredited programs by the Commission. Let's move on as well. School-based degree programs have been stopped immediately. We all know someone who does this, school-based degree programs, especially when schools closed. You have individuals who go to universities and try to see if they can get their degrees. This has now been stopped immediately. So if you're a student at any university who's been pursuing this, you may want to contact a university and find out which direction now you need to take. Executive degrees have been suspended and papers recalled. Executive degrees are those degrees that individuals get courtesy of the skills they have, the experience that they have in their field. So once you have a certain level of experience, then you're allowed to get your executive degree. Those have now been suspended and those papers may be recalled. This is linked to this next board. Now, those who got PhDs after executive degrees are to be barred from teaching in Kenyan universities. So if you got your executive degree, then you went ahead and got your PhD, then you will not be allowed to teach in any Kenyan university. Of course, this is going to affect a lot of individuals in Kenya. Do we have another board? Yes, we do. So most honorary degrees may be recalled as well, and there have been some individuals who are completing undergraduate studies in as little as 9 months. We all know that undergraduate studies cannot take 9 months. For those of us who've gone through it, will tell you it takes maybe like 4 years. There are individuals who are getting this in as little as 9 months. These are some of the anomalies that have been picked up by the Commission. So that is something that universities need to look into. Now, those who got into universities with P1 certificates, bridging courses, or less than C+ may lose degrees or university slots. Remember, Matiang'i being very categorical about the kind of education level that he's trying to ensure this country has. So if you got into university with P1 certificate, a bridging course, there's so many individuals who get into universities with this, or less than a C+, you may lose your degree or your university slot. So those are just some of the highlights of that audit report that was carried out by the Commission for University Education that was, of course, ordered by Education Cabinet Secretary, carried out in both private and public universities. Let's move on now. And a member of the Kwale County Assembly has been accused of duping and transporting voters to his ward in a bid to gain mileage in the August 8th polls. The residents claim they were lied to about a campaign rally that would fetch them quick money, only for it to turn into a scheme to have them register as voters in a particular ward. The MCA has, however, denied having any ill motive. Akisa Wandera looks at that story for you.
Kwa kusema kweli, tulibebwa na gari tukaletwa na kubebwa na gari kuregeshwa tena huko. Kumbe baadaye ni kuja kutuangamiza kabisa, sio mtu wa kuendeleza wananchi wao watapata manufaa.
Asubuhi na mapema ukifika pale tukaambiwa kwamba tundeni kule kuna kitu tutapewa. Sasa mimi nikaja tu na lengo langu ya kwamba kuna kitu ambacho tutapewa.
This seems to be the general feeling with this particular group of people from Lunga Lunga constituency. A promise of making quick campaign money saw them bundled into this bus, partially hidden in the bush, only for them to realize that they were actually duped into transferring their votes to Sega Ward by a local politician.
Tulifatwa na gari. Tukaambiwa kila mtu abebe kitambulisho yake, na kwa kusema ule kweli kufikia huku kwa sababu tulibebwa kama kutekwa nyara. Basi kufika huku tukaambiwa tubadilishe kura, tupigie Bwana Yusufu, na kwa kusema ule kweli wananchi wengi walijaribu kubadilisha kwa sababu walidanganywa na 150, 100, 300.
Kwa kweli mimi tumeona gari tu kule inaingia, tukasikia tu mnaitwa wamama kwenye gari. Kufika kule tukaingizwa kwenye gari, tunaambiwa twendeni Lunga Lunga nikampatia pesa. Mkabadilishe kadi. Kwa kweli mimi nimebadilisha kwa sababu ilikuwa sijui ile maneno ambayo iko pale.
According to the residents, a local politician gave them cash amounting to between 100 to 300 shillings each. They were gullible, they admit, but are quick to blame poverty and the current drought on their situation.
Ndio tukio tulifanywa kana kwamba sisi ilikuwa hatuelewi kwa jumla, walikuwa hatuelewi. Kina mama walikuwa wenye watoto na wazee kama mlivyowaona hapa, lakini pia tukabadilisha kwa sababu ile hali yetu tuliona kwamba penipo tutasaidika, kumbe ilikuwa mheshimiwa hana msingi wa kutusaidia.
Ikawa nikana kwamba nimetekeka akili. Maana sasa nikikataa itabidi mimi niende tena na mguu na Kasemeni ni mbali. Kama nikakubali kwa sababu niambiwa nitapelekwa na pesa nitapewa. Kiasi ile pesa ambayo natazamia labda pengine nitapewa pesa ambayo itanisaidia hata kurudi kule, pia ikifika ikanifai katika jamii yangu. Nimepewa shilingi 300 ambayo ilikuwa kana kwamba ni tukano kwangu tena na aibu.
Sega Ward MCA Yusuf Hassan Bwana has however denied these claims, terming them as propaganda perpetrated by his opponents.
Hizo habari hizo za uzushi. Hizo habari zilipangwa toka jana. Shaona wakati wao hao waliokuja na habari hizo walikuwa jana wakileta watu hapo, lakini mimi sijawahi kuleta mtu hata mmoja na gari yangu. Mimi kwanza sifanyi kazi kama hiyo. Sijaonekana Kikoneni mimi hata siku moja, wala sijakwenda Kikoneni, wala sijachukua gari yangu nikiipeleka Kikoneni. Shaona ni madai ya urongo.
An audio clip obtained by KTN News also seemed to contain shocking statements allegedly made by the MCA on how he plans to get more votes in the August polls.
Nimekuwa Mombasa jana Likoni, nimekuwa Likoni, nimechukua tukutuku zote za Likoni, nimechukua pikipiki zote za Shimoni, kuleta watu kuja kuandikisha hapa Vanga. Itakuwa haki hiyo.
Kwale County residents claim that their reports to authorities have landed on deaf ears. Akisa Wandera, KTN News.
If you have been following the mass voter registration exercise, then you will recall that these are some of the issues that have been raised by IEBC in the last couple of days, voter transfer, and of course we do know that the mass voter registration exercise has now been extended by 2 days. It ends on Sunday. That is a story we'll also be focusing on for you. But then let's focus on a story that we had yesterday, and every single person focused on Uhuru Park when Doctors Union officials were released and the whole country focused on that entire story. But now let's tell you the story behind that story. For 2 months and 14 days, doctors in Kenya have controlled the headlines. Many have heard the voices of Doctors Union officials and those involved in mediation talks. But tonight, KTN News takes you exclusively behind the headlines with the untold story of how Kenya as a nation has survived and borne the pain of 74 days without the 5,000 doctors. It is a story of harsh realities, adjustments and shock that ironically also reveals the significance of some of the reforms the doctors are demanding. Here is Timothy Otieno with that special report for you.
23-year-old Lois Sau begins a journey she has embarked on a daily basis for the last 6 weeks. But even though she knows the end result may just be the same, every morning she leaves her home seeking medical treatment at the Voi County Hospital about 5 kilometers away. On this day, the story is no different. The renal unit at the hospital is completely deserted. Doctors have abandoned the hospital, and with them, the weekly supplies meant to have the dialysis patients get the much-needed treatment they seek have since been depleted. She heads back home distraught. Tomorrow, things may be different. Lois was diagnosed with a kidney complication late last year, just mere weeks before the start of the doctor's strike, and since then requires dialysis twice every week. She recalls how prayer has been the only thing giving her strength at such dire times.
Mchungaji wako tusima kanombea kanaambia Loisa utakufa ukana imani haukufi lakini basta. Nilipoambia nikupita mwingine akapigwa simu akaja kanombea ile roho ikawa imetulia, nilikuwa nafuta roho ikawa imetulia.
Her story is one that Amon Juma from Nakuru County may relate to. Perhaps maybe even worse for Amon is that the ongoing strike has cost him his marriage. His wife developed complications in her pregnancy days after the strike began. He rushed her to the nearest hospital but didn't get treatment.
Alikuwa na ile ambayo tunaita ectopic pregnancy. Mimba ambayo inapatikana katika the fallopian tube instead of the uterus. Akawa wanamharakisha sana aende afanyiwe operation ndipo aweze kuondolewa kwa sababu it is an emergency.
Despite taking her to a nursing home, the wife passed away, becoming the latest victim of a protracted industrial strike biting the nation. The evidence of the strike is perhaps manifest across most public health institutions. The Pumwani Maternity Hospital is one such institution. Here, the wards are as silent as a graveyard. When we arrived here, we found the nurse in charge all alone, save for this lady Agnes Karambu, who gave birth here just yesterday. The first patient to come here since Monday this week.
Now this is a free maternity hospital with one patient. A whole big maternity hospital with one patient. Surely it is unheard of. It has never been like this before.
We are seeing the worst of what could have happened in this hospital, where the public know that there's no doctor, and so they don't turn up. So when they don't turn up, I don't know where they are going to.
For a hospital which, when operating at an optimum level, delivers between 80 to 100 babies a day, the current average of about 5 babies a week could be more disturbing for Gertrude Nabwire, who has been a nurse here for more than 15 years.
A nurse is there to nurse patients. So this is a scenario where you are nursing beds, empty beds. Surely that is not nursing. There's nowhere written that you are going on duty, you are going to nurse beds. And it's a situation whereby you are nursing 66 empty beds.
The long and protracted medical doctors' strike has affected basically 3 levels of health institutions in the country. They are the public health institutions, with whom doctors have withdrawn services for well over 2 months now. Private health institutions, some of whom have been accused of reaping bountifully financially from a crippling public healthcare system. And then there are the faith-based organizations that have borne the greatest brunt of this long-drawn strike. And the evidence of that burden in this hospital is crystal clear. Early last month, the Ministry of Health reached an agreement with all faith-based hospitals in the country to mitigate in the ongoing crisis by providing critical medical support for patients who need it. But now, weeks into that agreement, the few doctors serving such institutions have been stretched to their limits, serving nearly 1,000 patients daily. Dr. Kimani Ngaruya, for instance, is the only pediatrician at the St. Mary's Hospital in Langata, handling approximately 94 babies in a ward meant for just 40 of them.
There is much that one person can do over a period of 24 hours. So we've had our doctors having to do shifts both day and night. Majority have also not had the opportunity to take leaves, which of course brings issues of burnout.
One of the demands by the doctors in their CBA is the hiring of 1,200 new doctors annually to reduce the backlog of patients witnessed at public hospitals. It is for that reason that Dr. Kimani says he supports his colleagues who recently spent 2 nights in jail for dishonoring a court order to end the strike. Private hospitals have been accused of making a killing with influx of patients to their facilities, but the numbers, according to the Nairobi East Hospital's administrators, remain low. The facility only has 23 patients in the general ward, with 7 at the intensive care unit and only 3 at the maternity wing. The pricey nature of private facilities has kept many at bay.
Ningekuwa nimetibiwa mapema na expenses yenye niliokaa siku hiyo singeokaa. Hata sasa niko na bili kubwa. Hiyo inamaanisha lazima nifanye mjango.
These ones who come, we always pray that they don't complicate after delivery.
Where normal deliveries of babies is free at public hospitals, here at the Nairobi East Hospital, you have to part with between 25,000 to 35,000 to deliver.
We have so many unpaid bills. We need to have our supplies, we need to pay our consultants. But now when you have a patient who has accrued a bill of 2 million, and these bills are as a result of the drugs, the medication given, so you need to restock the stores. How do you go about it?
And with the doctor's stalemate still ripe, Kenyans are turning to the most unlikely of sources for help. 80-year-old Veronica Saniengo is a traditional herbalist making big money from desperate Kenyans seeking her services in Iten, Uasin Gishu County. She receives about 20 sick patients a day who receive herbs for their diseases. Never mind the fact that here, the prognosis is simply done by the touch of a hand.
Na ulifunzwa na nani?
Sasa mimi jine tane. Sasa na Mungu. Na kwa naleta akili yangu najua
Kwa sababu hatuwezi jua ni shida gani kwa mwili, tunakunywa hii dawa tu lakini inatusaidia.
Wakikosa dawa huko, wakikosa madaktari wanasema waje tuende ya kienyeji kwa sababu hata mtu akirudi nyumbani bure ni mbaya na ugonjwa inazidi kwa mwili. Mpaka wengine wanakuja kwa shosho, wengine wanaenda kwa chemistry kununua dawa.
For the many like Lois who may not even afford the little charge offered by herbalists, the sooner the doctor's strike ends, the better for her.
Magonjwa narudi tu kwa sababu nguvu zinaisha, kula na shito na kula sahi. Nakaa sometimes nakuna maji peke yake, nashinda na maji vipi tu peke yake. Najaribu tu kidogo naona kama tumbo yangu kama kuna kitu ninaguruma kwa tumbo.
The number of lives lost over the last 74 days has been estimated to run to the thousands, even as many Kenyans look to those placed to guarantee them accessible, cheap and effective healthcare to resolve the crisis before a nation full of so much potential goes to its deathbed over a crippled and ailing public healthcare system. Timothy Otieno, KTN News.
So we've heard from the doctors who are on strike. Timothy Otieno is looking at the patients who normally depend on these doctors, looking at the other side of the coin. And that story by Timothy Otieno forms the basis of a big question tonight. And they're asking you, do you sympathize more with the patients or with the doctors as the strike continues? Remember, the doctors are on record. They say they want better working conditions that will not just benefit them, but their patients as well. But then on the other side, you have patients who are also suffering as the strike continues. So do you sympathize more with the patients or with the doctors as this strike continues? You can tweet us at KTN News, at KTN Kenya, at me as well, at Linda Ogutu. I'd love to sample your views. This is a conversation that the whole country is having as we wait for an amicable solution to the doctors' strike. Now, let's focus on the mass voter registration, and the High Court Judge Chacha Mwita has directed Kenya's Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to continue the countrywide mass voter registration exercise up to Sunday, 19th February. The IEBC argued extending the voter registration timelines further would affect its budgetary allocations and preparations for the August poll, saying it has been using 70 million shillings daily to register voters. Patrick Amimo has that story for us.
Now, what is
On Tuesday, Justice Chacha Mwita directed IEBC to continue the countrywide mass voter registration exercise up to Thursday until a petition filed by activist Okiya Omutata seeking extension of the deadline is heard. IEBC planned to close voter listing on Tuesday when the 30 days registration window was to lapse. Come Thursday, Omutata argued for an extension, saying many Kenyans who had not collected their national identity cards would be disenfranchised.
There's a proposal to begin inspection of the register on 10th of May. I'm simply praying that we extend this registration to the 7th of May, 3 days before the 10th of May, and we'll be within the law of 60 days to an election.
They would require that the IEBC avails time for the inspection of the register. It is required by law, again under the same section, that there is availed time for certification of the register. It is required again that there is availed time for the audit of the register. My Lord, these are all back-end processes which are as important as capturing the voter details on the first day when a voter presents themselves to the station. In the budgetary projections approved by Parliament, the first respondent has been spending approximately 70 million shillings on a daily basis on the mass voter registration exercise.
We urge you to consider that they are abrogating their responsibility in respect to continuous registration of voters.
IEBC planned to register 4 million voters on the lower side or 6 million voters on the upper side during the mass voter registration exercise. The Commission said it was targeting 9.2 million Kenyans who had acquired national identity cards but are not enlisted as voters. But after a month, the Commission has managed to enlist about 3 million voters. Omutata differed with the IEBC legal team on the need to mobilize more Kenyans to register.
It is not in the place of the IEBC, the first respondent, to force people to register as voters. Theirs is to prepare an environment that is enabling for that exercise to be done. The IEBC Act, the commission is meant to be independent.
IEBC is independent, yes, but it's not, independence is not equal to impunity.
The judge took 2.5 hours to analyze submissions from both sides and made his considered judgment on whether the mass voter registration deadline should be extended up to May as prayed by Omutata.
The Independent Electoral and Boundary Commission is hereby directed to continue with mass voter registration up to 19th of February 2017 at 6 p.m., after which it shall stand closed. Each party do bear their own costs.
IEBC plans to start registering voters in Kenyan prisons for the August polls between February 20th and 28th. Patrick Amimo, KTN News.
All right, Patrick Amimo, thank you. You're watching KTN Prime. Thank you for staying with us. We're taking a breather. Before we do that, let's focus on that story that was done by Timothy Otieno. He took a look at the other side of the doctor's strike, focusing on the patients who depend on the doctors who are now on strike, who now have to look for alternative means, some even turning to traditional herbalists to try and see if they can get help. So we're asking you, do you sympathize more with the patients or with the doctors as the strike continues? Let us know what you think at the second bit of this bulletin. I'll sample some of your views on the ongoing